Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. We have zonal flow across the United States as we go into today, and what that means is quiet weather conditions with high pressure across the contiguous United States. Although we do have a stationary boundary that is pushing across portions of the Gulf Coast that will continue to bring unsettled weather to our friends across coastal Texas, Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, and portions of northwestern Florida, and on up into the southeast coast as we go through today. Looking at this afternoon, this is what the picture looks like across portions of the United States and southern Canada. The precipitation map is very bleak out there. We don't have much precipitation across the United States, although with that stationary boundary across the southern and southeasternmost regions, we could be seeing some spotty showers and some thunderstorms out there from Virginia, the Delmarva region, all the way down through the Carolinas, Georgia, down through Dixie Alley there, and across coastal Texas as we go through the afternoon and into this evening. Otherwise, high pressure is in firm control for the rest of the country of the United States and really much of southern Canada as we go through the day today. In fact, the high pressure will actually help us warm up a handful of degrees across portions of the Central Plains through the mid-Mississippi Valley into the Ohio Valley. Temperatures there will be well into the 50s, if not the low and mid-60s. You can see ahead of that stationary boundary into Florida and southern Georgia, temperatures down there will be into the 80s. We can see the Miami region reaching around 86 degrees, 86 up there into the Daytona Beach region, and 82 over there into Panama City and the Tallahassee region. So definitely warm down across Florida as we go into this afternoon. And if you do like detailed weather breakdowns on North America, including the tropics on this channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. It is absolutely free to do. And again, you get detailed weather breakdowns right here on North America and the tropics. Be sure to press the like button. It does help out more than you know. I do appreciate that. But moving ahead to this weekend, Saturday into Sunday, we still have that zonal flow. It's from west to east with the jet stream across the United States and much of North America. We don't really see that big divot in the jet stream, which means that we have a trough. And we do see that, though, across the Northeast Pacific, but not across the mainland United States. So what you see is what you get for your temperatures out there. It will be a bit cooler up to the north. Temperatures on Saturday up into North Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and portions of interior New England could be held down into the 30s and 40s. But elsewhere, very mild conditions for the middle of November on Veterans Day here on Saturday, the 11th. And definitely seeing many areas reaching into the 50s and 60s out there. And then the same thing can be said on Sunday. However, we're going to start to see return flow out of the south and southwest across the middle of the country. So portions of Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas will actually warm up further into the upper 60s and low 70s as we go into Sunday, November 12th across those areas. And looking at this weekend's precipitation map, that stationary boundary will drop a little bit further to the south into portions of central Florida over the Orlando region, over Tampa Bay, and further to the south to where we start to see less precipitation near the Gulf Coast and more of it over the open water of the Gulf of Mexico this weekend. But you do see there are still some showers in place from New Orleans, the Mobile region down into Alabama, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa on south, and then down south of Atlanta, Georgia toward the Macon region and Savannah, Georgia, over there toward Myrtle Beach and Charleston. It's going to be wet across those areas at times this weekend. But notice, across the rest of the country, much like we're seeing today, very dry conditions and high pressure is in control across the Great Lakes and then back across the Rockies as well. So that is going to be bringing a lot of dry skies across portions of the United States and southern Canada yet again for Saturday and into Sunday. Overall, here's our storm total rainfall accumulation in inches through Monday, November 13th. You can see there will be precipitation up across the Pacific Northwest. We didn't talk about this much. There could be some rain and some higher elevation snows, especially on portions of British Columbia. Near the coast of British Columbia there on the Pacific Ocean side, could definitely start to see some heavier snows in those higher elevations, and then a little bit soggy down there towards Seattle and Portland as we go through the Monday time frame. But really the storm system we were talking about with that stationary boundary will be bringing rounds and rounds of showers and storms for coastal Texas and near the Gulf Coast and portions of the southeast coast as we go through Monday, November 13th. And looking at some areas that could be seeing some higher storm totals, rainfall accumulations, places like Brownsville, Corpus Christi, up there toward Houston, and then extending over there toward Alexandria, Louisiana, and towards the New Orleans region, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and even Mobile, Alabama as well. We could be seeing widespread amounts of 1 to 3 plus inches across those regions through Monday as a total. And then further to the east, a nice swath there across southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, as we just mentioned, and then across south central Georgia and northwest Florida, we could be seeing another swath there of about 1 to 3 inches of rain through that Monday, November 13th time frame. And overall, the grand scheme of things, this is actually going to help out in improving some of our significant drought across portions of the Deep South and Dixie Alley. We have widespread areas into coastal Texas and towards Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama. A lot of these areas are seeing at least severe drought, but a lot of extreme and even exceptional drought in that red and maroon red shaded color, really centered across portions of Louisiana and into Mississippi. So we desperately need the rain. We're going to get quite a bit of it, and it's going to put a dent in our drought, hopefully, as we go towards the second half of the month of November. And looking here toward the second half of the month of November, we have a fairly decent size high pressure system. We got a ridge that will be building across the middle of the country on Monday, November 13th. And then we have a significant trough off across the West Coast, not quite into the West Coast on Monday, but as we go into the middle of next week on Wednesday the 15th, we start to see that approach California and the West Coast of the United States, while downstream we have high pressure in control. We have warm, well above normal temperatures across the middle of the country on Wednesday, and then as we go into Friday, that storm finally makes its way onto coastal California and the West Coast, producing some rainfall and some heavier snows across that region. And I do note as well, we will have a trough swinging across portions of the Great Lakes region, mainly on the Canadian side of things up here toward Ontario and Quebec, but mainly keeping itself further to the north. But we could have some of that reaching down across the Great Lakes as we go into later next week. This could provide us with some cooler weather and possibly chances for a couple of showers and storms up across the Great Lakes as we go into that later week time frame. Overall, though, looking at next week, it is going to be very warm for November standards. We're well above normal for about 90% of the country there, centered across the Midwest and Great Lakes, and slightly below normal there for California near the Sacramento Valley, down there toward Los Angeles, San Diego, and the Palm Springs area. That's where we're likely going to see a lot more of the rainy weather, the cloudy and gloomy weather as we move ahead through the week, especially later on in the week. But with those well above average temperatures, look at the middle of the week there. This is on Wednesday, November 15th. These are some of the temperatures we could be seeing out there as we go into Wednesday afternoon. And we definitely could be seeing widespread 60s, if not 70s, surging all the way up into portions of Nebraska, the Hawkeye State of Iowa, getting into southern Wisconsin, parts of northern Illinois, getting into Michigan there and through the Ohio Valley. So pretty impressive, to say the very least, as we go into the middle of November there. But we have to look at precipitation prospects here, and you see towards the middle and second half of the month, we're going to start to favor that subtropical jet. We're going to be looking at more of an El Nino look to the weather pattern here. And this could be leading to some well above average precipitation for the Pacific Southwest, including California and the Sacramento Valley, and then moving in towards southern Nevada there into Arizona and the Four Corners region. And then eventually that energy will be progressing further to the east into the plain states and across the southeast, and then it'll be much drier to the north where that jet stream is a little bit further away. We're going to not have as much moisture, so drier skies most likely during this period as we go through the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Northeast, and New England through that second half there of November. And just looking at some of the rainfall estimates as we go through next week, we will start to see some heavier rains, and yes, even further south into Southern California, Los Angeles, the Palm Springs area, San Diego, Sacramento, those areas could be seeing some decent rains moving into next week. That energy will transfer downstream across the Four Corners region, so Phoenix in toward the Tucson area, and then moving further east into Albuquerque, and then across portions of the southern and central plains, we will start to see some rain showers and thunderstorm activity later next week into next weekend. We have to monitor next weekend some of these showers and storms as they move across the central and southern plains from Kansas on south through Oklahoma and Texas. Could get a little bit strong with some damaging winds and hail. We'll have to keep an eye on that as we go through later next week. And looking at the higher elevation snows, there's going to be enough cold air aloft where we could start to see a few inches or a few feet of snow across portions of the west. So definitely seeing that for the ski resorts out west. Definitely be loving that as we go through the week and next weekend. And this warmth downstream across the eastern 2/3 of the country will have staying power. So this goes all the way through your Thanksgiving holiday time frame on Thursday, November 23rd. And it's going to be well above average for the eastern 2/3 of the country, basically Rockies on east. And then west of the Rockies, we're seeing near normal to below normal temperatures really centered across the west coast and portions of the Intermountain West out there. And looking at precipitation trends through the Thanksgiving holiday time frame does look to be active. So if you have any Thanksgiving travel plans, make sure to keep focus on the weather forecast moving forward, as things could get a little bit tricky out there with some showers and storms, possibly some severe weather, and who knows, maybe even a snow side to one of these systems as well. It's not ever too early to have a winter storm even in November, so we'll keep an eye on that as we get closer to Thanksgiving here on this channel. Let's turn now to the tropics. We are watching a 20% chance of a potential tropical system developing in the western and central Caribbean, according to the National Hurricane Center here. So they just highlighted this area recently over the past 24 to 48 hours. And looking at this, at the surface, it's really not that hard to think about. As you get toward the middle of November, we're likely getting toward the end of the hurricane season now, but it's still possible that we still see those tropical depressions, tropical storms, hurricanes, and who knows, even a major hurricane could still pop up even later into November before the hurricane season is completely done with. So let's look at a couple of the weather models, the main weather models here. This is the ECMWF, or otherwise known as the European forecast model. And you can see across the western and central Caribbean, there is some stirrup in the activity here, some bands of showers and thunderstorms, those higher explosive thunderstorms that are 50, 60,000 feet tall, that produce the flooding rains and a lot of that lightning out there. We'll be watching for the center of low pressure where that could set up here as we go into later next week. This is on Friday, November 17th. And the GFS is actually more bullish, and it usually is, especially as we're this far out now, about a week away. So we'll have to keep an eye on this. The GFS has been doing decent across portions of the tropics this year, so we can't discount this solution, even though it may be a little bit of an outlier. It is producing a 983 millibar low in the western and central Caribbean there toward Jamaica and near Cuba, so we'll have to keep an eye on that as we go into later next week. Even looking over to the ensembles, the EPS ensemble members, this is the European ensemble guidance, and you can see very much in the same ballpark near Jamaica there, near Haiti, and then over there toward Cuba. We'll keep an eye on that. And the GEFS ensemble members, this is your American ensemble guidance for next week. It does have a little bit more spread in that for that low pressure center, either being across the Bahamas region, especially the eastern Bahamas, down through Haiti, down through Jamaica, eastern Cuba, all the way back down towards the Central America. So it really doesn't have a good idea of where that low pressure center could be, but that's why we're here. That's why we track things here as we get a little bit closer with more accuracy. But what is known and what is accurate is the sea surface temperatures. Look how warm they are, folks, across the central and western Caribbean, where this origin of the storm will start. And you can see we're 30 plus degrees Celsius. That's very warm water for this time of year. That's well into the 80s Fahrenheit. And look at that. The departure from normal for our sea surface temperature anomalies are well above normal, at least 1.5 to as much as 3 degrees Celsius above normal here in the Caribbean. Remember, the Caribbean has not been touched by tropical activity that much this hurricane season, so things could be changing in a big way if we can get a storm to originate there later next week. And we'll be tracking it right here on Weather on the Go. Well, if you like detailed weather breakdowns such as what I just provided to you, make sure to subscribe to the channel down below. It's absolutely free to do, and you get detailed weather breakdowns on North America and the tropics, as we just mentioned. Also, I would appreciate if everybody would press the thumbs up button down below. It does help out more than you know. Share this video with friends, family, and on social media, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their Friday out there.